and welcome back to the positive side with Larry and Sharon. I'm Larry Rifkin, sitting beside me, Sharon Panoni, and today we are going to discuss forgiveness.
Yes.
A major topic in life, in everything that we do, whether it involves, our spiritual path or just dealing in everyday life. We have to learn, and when we talk about forgiveness, I think the biggest misconception is that we always feel that we have to forgive other people, and we seem to forget about forgiving ourselves for a lot of things.
And actually, for me, for my personal self, that was a realization that I had early on in my on my journey, that I had to forgive myself before I could forgive anybody else, because I had to experience what that felt like. Compassion for myself, empathy for myself, and all of that. Because otherwise, a lot of times, prior to connecting with that part of me and recognizing the importance of it, I would say I forgive you, but it was just words.
Absolutely. And I think it's like anything else that we deal with when we become a little bit more enlightened. We realize that all of our emotions and all of our feelings and everything all starts within us. And we talk about this. We can't find happiness outside of us if we're not happy with inside of us. We can't find love outside of us if we don't love ourselves first. Just, you don't have room for it. And the same thing for forgiveness. When you're looking to forgive other people, you have to be able to forgive yourself first. It's the first step in opening up the space to allow, when you forgive somebody, you're letting go of being a prisoner. And that prisoner was us, not the other person, because we have no idea what that other person is. And when that forgiveness goes, and we're no longer tethered to that, we now have the space to allow the right person, the right situation, the right anything to walk in. But until we forgive ourselves, and then that's the first step, and then forgiving other people, we're tethered to the past.
Well, I think I agree with you. I think forgiveness, for me, forgiveness is still about the moment. I don't think about, well, I'm going to let space in for this, that, or the other thing. Maybe that is an end all to it. But in learning to forgive, and I'm talking about the little things, I'm talking about when you go down the road and somebody cuts you off on the road, or when you go to your bank and you have a problem with the teller at the bank. I'm talking about those little things. And one of the things that I've learned is if I've truly forgiven, then the memory or the thought that I have related to an experience is a good one. If I have not forgiven, then the memory or thought of the experience is as it was, the way it made me feel, yucky, angry, upset, whatever it is. So that's how I keep myself in check if I really want to know if I truly forgave.
Let me ask you then, when does the process of forgiving start? Does it start when you're in the bank line and the teller is telling you, oh, we put a hold on your account because a deposit was put in through an ATM and we stopped. So now you're in the moment and you're caught up and you're upset. You just found out that they put a hold on the bank because of a bank mistake. Mm-hmm. See, yes, I agree with you, but I can't practice that always. Usually it takes me a minute or two to walk away from the situation.
Well, I'm not saying that you're not going to have that. There wouldn't be a reason for forgiveness if we didn't have that moment of anger, upset, frustration. There would be no purpose for forgiveness. So we're all entitled to those moments. We're all entitled to those emotions. Anger is not my emotion. It's not your emotion. It's an emotion throughout the world. There's a reason and a purpose for these.
Let me give you even a better example.
So what is that reason?
Standing in line at DMV, Division of Motor Vehicles.
Right, but, and when you're talking about, but think about this for a minute. Okay, you're standing in line and you're upset at the experience. You're upset at the moment. Are you truly upset with the person or the process of it.
And you're right, and that's what brought me to asking your question is when does the process of forgiveness start? Because in that moment, you are upset. Mm-hmm. You're upset at the process, you're upset at the person, you're upset at yourself, whatever it is. And we realize we have to forgive, we realize we have to calm ourselves down.
Well, that's where the questions come in.
But the question comes in is, and I think for me, because I can only always talk personally for me, it usually takes me a little bit of time and space so that I can separate myself and I can rationally think about the fact.
When you say a little bit of time and space, give me an idea. Okay,
10 minutes, 15 minutes of walking away when I got upset and it bubbled over and I realized it and I walked away, and what I do is try to calm myself and still my mind and do that. It's in that, and it might be 15 minutes, it might be half an hour, it might be 5 minutes. But I know when I'm caught up in this situation, I can't start that process right then. I need a little bit of space.
Yeah, and I think everybody's entitled to that. I think, I will be frank. I mean, I went through a period in my life where I carried anger, for lack of a better word, towards some people and some experiences in my life. A deep-seated anger.
Are you talking years, or are you talking...
I'm talking years. And when the thoughts of these people came up, or when the thought of the experience came up, or when I went to share the story with somebody else, it was coming from a place of anger. It was coming from a place of resentment. It was coming from a place of hurt. And it was coming from a place of possibly revenge at that point in my life. And what I will say to you is all of those emotions, all of those thoughts were internal. And what I recognized is when it came out of me, when I was sharing the story with somebody or having the thought, and I recognized how I felt and thought about, this has been years. And it still was I was allowing it to have a home and a space within me. That scared the bejeebies out of me. The bejeebies out of me.
Yes, and it always does. And let me ask you a question. We're both life coaches now. We both invested a lot of money and a lot of time into experiencing and into learning the modalities. And coming from the perspective as being a life coach as you are and looking back at those experiences, what did you learn? And did you learn that it cost you time out of your life?
It cost me, I think, more than time out of my life. It cost me probably part of my health at that particular time. It cost me peace, joy, happiness, the things that we all really desire. It cost me probably love.
For years?
Yeah, for years. There were things that I needed to work on. There was anger towards people who I thought had done things to me, and they did. However, what I learned is, we've said this before, it's in the experiences when you can step back. Anything, when you interact with another human being or even an animal or anything like that, it is not about us. It is about them. So how they're coming across and the things that they're doing to us really does not have to do with us unless we participate in it.
And what I want to ask you is now, using hindsight and using your training and your experience and what you went through, because I find that it's easier for me to share situations and to help people by sharing my own personal stories, because that's the perspective I can go with best. But now that you've gone through the training and it's been a long time and you are a life coach and you work with people, the process of forgiving yourself, what steps did you take to recognize, number one, that the anger was within you and not really resonating with the other people, realize that, accept that, and then start the process. And what was the process of you and have you? I should start with that. Have you let it go totally? Because I don't know if you have. And if you have, what was the process that allowed you to get there? And I know we can never talk about time because it's the universe's time, but what does somebody expect? Is this process going to take? Because I asked you, you said specifically years. I asked you that word, years, because I didn't know if you were going to say weeks or days, but you said years.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and for years, it builds more and more and more and more, the anger, the resentment, because we build it up in our heads. So how did you recognize that? What steps did you take to relieve that and to let it go? And was it final? Can you look me in the eyes and tell me there is zero resentment, zero anger when you think of those situations? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we do this?
And I can tell you that I have forgiven, and I can tell you that it is an ongoing process because there are always things that come up in our life. Listen, early on in my journey, I chose the back alleys. I chose the dim lit streets. I put myself in situations that were dangerous. I put myself in situations where my value and worth was what I believed it to be at the time, which was very low on the scale. And in doing so, there are people out there that will take advantage of that. And I was taken advantage of. I was taken advantage of in many ways, but in one particular way, I was sexually taken advantage of. So for a woman or a man, but I'm going to speak from my own perspective, that takes a piece of your soul. It tears you open and kind of dumps you out. And that stayed with me for a long time. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of mistrust. There was a lot of putting my feelings out onto the other people that came into my life. And until I could look at myself and forgive myself for putting myself in those places, in that situation, forgiving myself for feeling my value and worth was at that level. Find compassion for myself. Find empathy for myself. In those moments when you can look at yourself and say, these were thoughts that I had about myself at a particular point in time, and I am not that person anymore. That is the beginning of you no longer being a victim of circumstances, of memories of your past. That is the beginning of living in your now. And there is a freedom that until you reach this place, there is a freedom and a peace and a calming that comes. And it's beautiful. I'm just going to tell you, it's a really beautiful thing. And in doing that, that is the beginning of the forgiveness. So there's so many steps to forgiveness, but I'm just going to say, if you have something that you've been holding on to, that you're carrying, that takes a place of anger or hatred or anything along those negative vibration level emotions, I implore you, I share this story with you because I'm telling you, look in the mirror and start to forgive yourself. Have compassion for yourself. This will be the beginning of a new life for you, a new peace for you. And this will be something that you will be able to inspire and make a difference in this world in the way that you are meant to. This is your potential.
And that's some very, very good advice. And before I even ask you my next question, because I do have a follow-up question to that, I have to tell you that one of the reasons why I love doing this show is it's so real. It's so real, it's so raw. I mean, we talk about our real emotions, and I'm sorry you got a little choked up there, but it is real.
Yeah,
I mean, everything we do is real.
This is why, for me, this is why I'm passionate about what we do and what I do, because it is in the stories and in the journeys and the experiences of others that we grow.
Now, let me ask you the next question, because we talk about forgiveness, and that's such a broad umbrella. And we just spoke about a situation where we were dealing with specific people, concrete people. And I know through my clients and through actually personal experience, what happens when your anger and your frustration is at something that isn't a specific person, and specifically what I'm talking about now is anger towards God. I can tell you that, as you know, I lost both my parents recently. My father 5 years ago and my mother last year. When we lost my father, my mother got very angry at God. And to the day that she passed away, never forgave him, never walked back into a temple, never walked it, just couldn't let that anger go. You know, she held God responsible for what happened to my father. My uncle had passed away 6 days after my father, her brother. So now we have this anger and this frustration, but it's not focused at a specific person anymore. It's now focused at a theology, at a philosophy, at an idea, at God, whatever it is. So is that forgiveness process different? Or are we still going from the same place and forgiving an abstract situation the same way that we do to a concrete situation?
In my opinion, it's the same process, because I'm sorry that your mom left our world that way. Because for me, faith is believing in something that I can't see. It is that. And I also, because I believe in that, I'm a realist in that we are born, we are here to live an amazing life, please, please, please.
And be happy.
And our lives will end in the way that we know it on this earth. There are some that come in that are here for like a split second. And there are some that are allowed to live a journey. You know, my grandparents lived till they were in their 90s. Some call that a blessing, some call that a curse, you know. But I mean, seriously. But we don't know that.
That is correct.
And that's why, for me, my faith is so important. And my faith is one of the stepping stones, one of the keys, one of the jewels to my forgiveness of myself. I'm not saying that, you know, when my uncle left this world, or when I lost friends unexpectedly, or, you know, when these things happen to me in my life, or when things happen to people that I love dearly, or when I look at the world and what's going on and I see killing and anger and hate, that I don't get angry and I don't get pissed off and I don't, you know, shake my hands up and go, why? But that is a question that I feel cannot be answered. So for me, what can I do? And for me, I can be the person on this planet right now that I wish for others to be.
So then
And forgiveness ties into that.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that the process, the steps that we take towards forgiveness are basic steps that we take.
Can you hear
the
cooing?
owl?
Yeah, can you hear it? Actually,
Your
I
owl.
don't think it's the owl. It's a lovebird. So thank you, lovebird, for singing in our video. We appreciate it.
The process, the steps that we take to alleviate our frustration and let go of anger are basic steps that you take no matter what the anger is. Whether it's towards a specific person, whether it's towards a situation, whether it's towards the divine, whatever it is.
Because it's all inside of you.
So the process and the way of going about it, and I agree with you, and as a life coach, I absolutely do agree with you.
How about as
that
a
the
human being?
As a human being, it's a little bit tougher. I still agree with you.
Yeah.
It's I agree with the theory and I agree with the basics. I think putting it into action sometimes is a little bit tougher, but we learn just
So
like
how
everything.
do you do it? So for me, I write it down, and I write it down, and sometimes I crumple it up. You've heard me tell this story before, where when I left my marriage, which was not about marriage, but there's still sadness and all of the things that went with it. I metaphorically, as I drove across the states, went through the emotions, crumpled it up in a metaphorical ball, rolled the window down, and threw it out. Or I dance, I crank up music where it's just like, and I sing at the top of my lungs. Or I, go out in nature. What are the things that you do that help you to release it?
Well, I don't litter.
Metaphoric ball. Metaphoric ball.
I do. My
I highly
process is
suggest it.
my process is very similar because I believe, as you do, and as I think we both teach our clients, is that forgiveness has to start with ourselves. I think that's basic. I think that's monumental, and I think that's real important. And then as I forgive myself, I do similar things that you do. I do it mentally in my mind. List the things, let them go, release them to the universe, release them to God, and I'm not tethered to it anymore.
I'll tell you how I know when I've released something. Again, when the thought passes my brain or the experience passes, something makes me think of it, my thought is no longer out of anger. It is out of something, even if it's just a short moment, it is out of a positive. It's out of a positive.
Absolutely, and that is how we know. And I hope you got some good information about this, about forgiveness and releasing. And this is something that you're able to use in your toolbox on daily life. And until next time, remember, there's always a positive side.